Hey guys, I'm Will from Tested.
And I'm Norm from Tested.
Norman Chan, it is iPad season.
Well, that's the new iPad Air
2.
Air 2.
Air 2.
It's the iPad Air 2.
Yes.
Which seems to be the only iPad this year worth talking about.
It's yeah, I mean, they updated the iPad Mini. We'll touch on that ever so briefly. The iPad Mini 3 is basically an iPad Mini 2 with a Touch ID sensor. It comes in gold. Seems like nothing else has changed.
Nothing else has changed.
So there's a handful, like, the place we're at with the iPad now is that it is a very iterative product, right? This is a slightly better version of the iPad Air. In some ways, there's a couple of pretty big changes, but nothing that you're going to consider upgrading from an iPad Air 1 to this guy for. This is for people who have an iPad 3, an iPad 4 maybe.
Maybe.
iPad. If you're not on a Retina iPad, this is definitely a great upgrade. Mm-hmm. If you're on an original iPad, probably you're okay. If you're still on an original iPad,
and you're happy
you
with
probably don't need a new iPad. Just
right.
keep riding that thing until it breaks.
Yeah.
But the big things that, obviously, a lot of stuff's the same. This is the same 9.7-inch screen that's been on every iPad ever. Mm-hmm. It's 2048 by 1536 resolution. It's the standard Retina iPad resolution screen. It's the same screen as on the iPad Air 1, but they have changed it just the tiniest bit. Instead of being under the surface with an air gap between the top glass and the screen, the LCD is actually optically bonded to the screen.
Can I take a look?
Yeah, of course.
I actually have not seen this yet. And so the effect of that, with it being optically bonded, is that the images on the screen, especially you're talking about the UI, which is supposed to be right up against the screen, looks like it's on the screen as opposed to ever so slightly beneath it.
So I haven't done side-to-side A/B tests with something like the HTC One, which was the first optically bonded screen that we saw that seemed like it looked like a printed magazine page. If you look at this one, you can actually see there's a little tiny bit of depth, but there's a little bit less bezel between the screen and the edge of the display than there is on, say, the Air 2. And this one's still updating. iOS 8.1.1 came out this morning.
Where you would most notice this, for example, if you were to go into Apple Store and try to find an image of, first of all, photos and text look good, but also, like what you said, the bezel. If you look at this space between the white part of that bezel and the actual color of the screen, there's supposed to be a little bit of a black gap. So
you still have a little bit of a black gap, but you can see it on the screen on the iPad Air 1, which is the bottom iPad. You can't see it at all on the 2 in the shot. You can see it in person just a little bit, but it's not particularly noticeable. The screen is tested reasonably well. DisplayMate did their normal round of tests, and they like the optical bonding. There's some anti-reflective stuff in addition to the optical bonding, so those two things together mean that this display is much more usable outside than any iPad I've ever used before. When you get out in bright sunlight, there's a little bit of a purplish cast from the way the anti-reflective coating works, but it means that I was able to use it on a normal backlight, middle-level backlight like you would inside, and you're still able to see it.
Does the auto brightness adjust for that and not have to pump up brightness all the way up if you're outside?
It didn't. It definitely bumped up the brightness some. It didn't brighten it up all the way. It's difficult to say because the brightness sensor is always a little finicky, and it still does the thing where it will brighten up if you go from a dark room to a lighter room, but it never dims back down if you go from a light room to a dark room. So it's you test it 3 times, you get a slightly different result each of 3 times.
But the biggest difference in terms of the physical size, and this is something that did not change from the iPad Mini 2 to 3, is that this is actually smaller and lighter.
Yeah, so the iPad Air 1 was a pound even. This is 0.96 pounds.
Slightly lighter.
It is not noticeably lighter.
All right, so I'm going to do a blind test right here. Put one of the iPads on this hand. Okay, my eyes are closed.
Yep.
I'm not going to even touch the bezel to see.
If you can touch the sensor, you can tell.
The home button, which I'm not going to. God, they almost feel exactly the same. I'm going to do this. This feels. I pride myself on being able. This is the new one. This is the new one, isn't it?
You're telling from the thickness.
I may be telling from the thickness.
As soon as you picked it up with your thumb, you can tell. Yeah, so you can tell from the thickness though, and it feels lighter because of the thinner bezel. So if you look at this shot, you're probably not going to be able to see this here, but basically the new iPad is exactly 1 chamfered edge thinner than the old iPad. So yeah, this is the thickness of the chamfered edge of the iPad Air 1. It feels a lot smaller as a result. It's let's see.
Because when that's spread out over the big surface area, you notice that more. Every reduction in thickness, because the screen is bigger. For example, if the iPad Mini was to also receive the same amount of thickness reduction, it would not feel as significant a thickness reduction because the screen size is smaller.
Yeah. So there's the center of gravity on the iPad Mini is closer to where you hold the iPad Mini. With the Air, if you're holding it down here in the bottom, like I tend to, with a kind of a crooked L grip where it tucks into the crotch of my hand. I'm still doing a lot of pressure. There's a lot of weight on my fingertips, which isn't ideal from an ergonomic standpoint.
Still, is it a one-handed use?
I use it like this.
So you can.
I hold it on the side with my thumb, and my fingertips are back along the back edges, flat though, so kind of more like that.
You couldn't do that with the iPad 3.
You could not do that with the iPad 3.
No.
Couldn't do it with the iPad 4. You could do it with the iPad Air 1. I don't think there's any difference in any measurable way between not 0.96 pounds and 1 pound. The thickness you do notice immediately, and I think it's 0.05 of an inch. Which sounds like nothing, but it's, it is noticeable. The ergonomics of this seem a little bit better. The thing that I really like about it is that when you put one of the magnetic cases on it, it feels about the same thickness as the iPad Air 2. Wow. iPad Air 1. It's a little tiny bit thicker, but it means that a case is actually, it's not something you're going to not use because it makes it too thick or too fat.
Oh, those so easy to scuff cases.
Yeah, they get really dirty and fingerprinty fast.
Is that the same case as last year?
Same exact case, yeah. Okay. So any of your iPad Air 1 accessories will work with the iPad Air 2. I think even the full body case, I don't have one of those to test, but when the iPad Mini got a little bit fatter, then they still worked across both generations.
Any other changes in terms of the physical design?
That's pretty much it. The big thing, obviously, is the Touch ID sensor, which is a new addition to the iPad line. It works just like it does on the iPhone 5S, 6, and 6 Plus. Basically, well, it's turned on now.
If you believe Apple and the difference that they did with what they changed between the Retina Mini 2 and the Retina Mini 3, that Touch ID is worth the price of admission of alone.
What did they change between the Retina Mini 2 and the Retina Mini 3? Oh, we can get it in gold.
Yes, in gold. Yeah. Touch ID is worth that much.
So I like Touch ID. Like, I'm a fan of Touch ID. It's the only fingerprint sensor I've ever used. I've had phones and laptops and all sorts of stuff with fingerprint sensors. Usually they're a pain in the ass. After the iOS 8 update especially, it's usable to the point that, I use it to log into my phone pretty much every time, except for the times that the iOS won't allow you to do that.
What I've heard is that it's tough to move away from.
Yes. Yeah, so when I have an iPhone 5S or an iPhone 6 Plus with the Touch ID sensor, I pick up my Mini Retina 2 without a Touch ID sensor. It's not good, but it's not, you swipe and tap 4 numbers and it's no big deal. The big place that I miss it actually is in 1Password. So with 1Password, I have a really massive long passphrase. It's the same one on my iPhone, my iPad, and all my laptops and computers and all that stuff. So I don't like typing a 30-character passphrase on a tablet or phone ever. Being able to hit the Touch ID button to log into that is wonderful. It's not, however, worth throwing out my 1-year-old iPad Mini and buying an iPad Mini 3 that's essentially the same thing plus Touch ID. The big changes to the iPad Air, though, aside from the size, are really the internals.
The guts.
Yeah, so the processor is this new thing. It's called an A8X. It's a triple-core processor.
That's the first one.
First one on any iOS device. That alone makes it markedly faster. When you look at the sites that do crazy benchmarking on iPads, like AnandTech, their benchmark results were astounding.
Now, we've got to talk about chip design. This is still an ARM-based chip. Apple licenses ARM, licenses
the instruction set.
The instruction set, designs their own die. And this is not a symmetrical tri-core.
It's unusual to see an odd number of CPUs greater than 1 in an
typically, when you have multiples of 3, it's either a core may be disabled. Like Intel, for example, with their 6 cores, it was really 8 cores with 2 cores disabled.
Or NVIDIA has been known to put and even Motorola does a less capable CPU that's core that's dedicated to some other task.
These are 3 equal cores.
These are 3 identical cores. They doubled the amount of, I think, L2 cache, and then it seems like after some folks have uncapped their CPUs and put them under the electron microscope. It seems like they've made significant changes to the GPU as well.
And that's a license from PowerVR.
PowerVR, yeah.
So they use a PowerVR chip, and the A8X, the X moniker usually comes with the iPad line.
It's only tablets.
It's only tablets. It's an upgrade to the phone version. So this, for example, would be comparable in terms of generation as the iPhone 6, but it's not just a speed increase.
It's not just a speed. It has been a speed increase in the past.
Yeah.
But this year, the third core plus the GPU. So the GPU is essentially double the number of GPU cores as in the iPad Air 1.
Which is up to 6.
Up to 8. So it was 4 before and now it's 8.
No, it's 4 before, now it's 8, and it's 6 in the iPhone 6.
It's 6 in the iPhone 6, yes,
right.
That's correct.
And what that does is you can add cores or you can increase clock speed. Increasing clock speed comes at a cost of power consumption, and it raises the TDP, and you can only compensate
and decreases
for that.
your battery life.
Decreases battery life as a result, and you can compensate for that by using a smaller nanometer die process, or you can add more cores and run things massively parallel.
And in many cases, it's much more efficient to run things massively parallel.
Right.
And you're looking at things like video games. Exactly. The fill rate on the GPU in this is pretty astounding for a mobile device, even for a laptop these days. Right. Basically, in the benchmarks, the only things that are comparable seem to be the new Tegra, the new Shield tablet from NVIDIA, which is the latest generation Tegra, and it's pretty much the only thing that has that right now, which makes sense.
So how does that actually matter in actual use?
In the real world, I'm gonna mash some buttons here. Yet disable, go away. This update took forever.
Because I thought the iPad Air was pretty smooth already in terms of day-to-day performance.
Yeah, the iPad Air is not a poor performing tablet. I mean, it is, for the things that I use on my tablet, it's wonderful. The place where the 2 makes a bigger difference is in things like load times and stuff like that. Okay. So if you've ever played XCOM on an iPad, and that's
our benchmark for a really slow loading game.
It's a real world example of things that can take a long time on an iPad situation. So I'm going to see if I can get all 4 of them to launch at the same time here.
So what we have here, and Will's going to show, is we have the original iPad mini. That's basically the iPad 2 inside the mini case. There's the iPad mini 2, which is generations higher. It's basically the iPad Air in a smaller form factor. There's the iPad Air 1. And we're testing
I'm skipping the Retina iPad because I forgot to put the new version of XCOM on it.
Okay.
So I'm just going to do 2.
Because theoretically, that Retina Mini is the same performance as the Air 1.
It's a clock speed decrease, so it should be like 10% slower or something like that.
So what we have is the worst case scenario.
This is iPad 2.
iPad 2.
Essentially. iPad Mini 1. iPad Air 1. iPad Air 2.
All right.
And I'm going to see if I can get all of them to go at the same time. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. You know what? I'm going to kill it over here before I do that.
Ha. Don't let it cheat.
Yeah, don't let it cheat. Because I was playing last night, and I want to make sure it's not in memory. Okay, now I'm really going to go. This is very exciting. I've not done this before. 3, 2, 1, go. Yep, I got it. I thought I missed it. It was so slow taking off, and you can already see this is a good 50 frames ahead. This hasn't even gotten to the 2K China thing yet.
Wow.
Like, this is just in loading videos. There's nothing happening here. It's presumably doing some background work with the shader rendering and stuff like that. This game will launch well before. Oh, that one actually launched fast. Okay.
Tapping.
Skip
those cutscenes.
So I'm going to hit single player. We're not going to bother with the 2 at the iPad Air or iPad Mini at this point. Okay. Let's do new games. Start game. No.
And there it's loading.
Live testing happening on camera.
So what's also changed is the camera's changed?
Yeah, so the camera's new. The front-facing camera is the same iSight HD camera it's been in for a while. 720p video, 1.1 megapixel pictures. It's not a selfie cam. I feel like that might actually be a missed opportunity here. Because these are devices that people use to take pictures of themselves and other people.
Yep.
The drop site for this operation. There we go. I'm going to kill this now, but it's load time on games is measurably faster.
Especially heavy ports. especially games that are ports of console games.
If you're PC. I mean, XCOM is a PC game, right? It's something that I ran on my PC with a giant ass video card that draws more power than this does in a day, and it runs just fine. You can play the game. The load times aren't bad enough that you don't want to play the game.
But for a simple game like Monument Valley, that's going to be not that noticeable difference?
I didn't notice a substantial frame rate difference between Monument Valley on this and my Retina Mini. But I mean, it's not a super intensive game. It's a pretty game, but it's not an intensive game.
So we're talking,
web browsing is the other place that you notice performance differences. It's a much more capable web browser, especially using Safari, and now that third-party browsers can use the what I can't remember what they call it, but the Turbo Boost JavaScript renderer. It's like, I use this to browse the web. The screen size is actually really good for that. 9.7 inches, stretched out into a column is a very readable way to browse the web. And it's kind of what I remember doing when I first got my iPad. It's spending a lot of time.
You can really notice that optical bonding right now on the home screen.
Yeah, so look at the fingerprints. I don't know if you can see, but all these smudges over here are fingerprints. And then you don't see it here. It looks like the screen is sunk in. Probably the screens are about the same level, if I had to guess. Because my hunch is that the extra thickness is just glass.
It's really at that edge right there that you can see in the outer edge.
And the reflectance as well. Like there's much more reflection on the old iPad.
So the camera on the back though also improved.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of a 5S camera. It's not exactly a 5S camera because it has a different aperture, but it's a what did it say, 12 megapixel?
8 megapixel.
8 megapixel f2.4 aperture camera. The 5S is an f2.2, I think, or 2.6. I can't remember.
So it could just be a different lens, but the same sensor.
Could be different lens structure. It has the high speed.
Okay.
It has burst mode.
It's high speed that's different than the iPhone 6.
It's 120 frames per second high speed, not 240 frames per second high speed. It does do burst mode, which I think is probably the most useful thing that they've done on this because it kind of compensates for shutter lag on the touchscreen.
I think you notice more with the iPad because it's a bigger thing.
Well,
it's a bigger camera.
You mean it's a bigger device that you have to hold?
You have to hold, and it's easier to get camera shake.
And more importantly, where's the switch?
There is no switch.
There is no switch. Oh my God.
Well, they got rid of the switch.
They took away the best part. The switch is gone. So there's no rotation switch anymore.
Your entire opinion of this has changed.
It's a -5. We don't give ratings. This is a -5. With the pop-up thing from the bottom that came in iOS 7, it's less important than it was before. I still miss the switch literally every single day.
I do want to call out that they did fix the thing in iOS 8 where if you scroll from the bottom and change your brightness, it actually gets brighter. It moves away from the dimness when you change the brightness.
Oh yeah, so it doesn't do the ghosted out background. Yes, they fixed that. That we didn't talk about that before. That is a good fix.
Yeah.
It has, basically, you're looking at iPhone 5S camera. It's a little noisy in the dark, was what I noticed. In daylight, it's great.
And it doesn't have, it's still flush. It doesn't
it's still
have
flush.
It
doesn't have the little pimple
lens in the back.
And you can use the volume buttons, to turn it on and off. I don't know why you would ever do that.
That is very flush.
Yeah, well, it's like the phones used to be, right?
Phones used to be.
The camera's good. It's good. It's nice that there's a real camera. I think we're starting to see some interesting applications where people use this as a viewfinder for other things. I'm still not a huge fan of taking pictures with my iPad, especially a ridiculously oversized iPad like this. It's a little more forgivable for a Mini. But the Mini didn't get a new camera, so
they know how
don't take pictures with your Mini.
Apple, I'm sure, tracks usage. They track, with EXIF data, they know how many people are actually taking photos. They uploaded the photo stream with the iPad versus iPad Mini and their phones. So it is a very popular camera. With a smaller iPad and faster processor, better hardware, you would think that the battery life has changed.
Battery life is about the same as iPads always have been. So I ran a video loop of video stored on the iPad. It ran for more than 10 hours, which is what they claim. I think I fell asleep at around 12 and it was dead when I woke up the next morning. So figure 12 to 14 would be my guess because it was like 10 or 15% left.
Okay.
That was running standard def and a mixture of standard def and HD videos. Again, stored locally, so there's no Wi-Fi access happening, nothing like that. But all the normal stuff was running in the background. I didn't turn it into airplane mode or anything like that. Even when I'm playing intensive games, whether that's things like XCOM or Civilization Revolution or trying to think what other like PC ports and console ports of games, you still get a full day's worth of use. I haven't sat down and done any 8-hour gaming sessions on my iPad, but playing for an hour or two in the evening, no problem at all.
Right.
Web browsing seems to be about the same as it has been on every other iPad I've ever used, and other people's tests seem to indicate the same thing. So.
Cool.
But there are a couple of other new features.
Okay.
Touch ID we've touched on. It's great. I don't think it's vital for an iPad, but it is good. I really wish that there was some sort of there was essentially handoff so that if my iPad knows my phone's near me, hey, it's safe to unlock. He's probably here. His phone's here. His phone's unlocked. There's no reason that these things shouldn't all talk to each other. They also added Apple Pay. To the iPad. I think just the iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini 3. They have to have some sort of chip to store the NFC hashes, but there's no antennas or any of that stuff in the device. So you can't do the dumbest thing in the world and take this to Subway and tap it to buy a sandwich.
So how does it work?
It's just for use in apps on the device.
That's what I thought.
So when you sign up for, when you download iOS 8.1, it says, hey, do you want to set up Apple Pay? And you're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. The smart thing that would have been amazing for this is if this was able to be a register. If you could receive Apple Pay payments, if you're, say, a small business person, and just have people bump their phones to the back of the iPad, that would be amazing. They don't do that.
I think that's a glaring omission. I'm really curious why they didn't do that. I mean, I guess not a lot of people, businesses want to spend $500 plus
that's
for a cash register when they can buy
one of these for $250.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference, is the iPad, I think they're going to look at the lower end of the spectrum. But in 2 years, when this is the low end of the spectrum, then I think we'll see some Apple Pay on iPads.
Okay.
802.11 AC support. So this is the first generation of iOS devices that has AC, not counting the 6 and 6 Plus. There's no difference. The gate for most people isn't. I never transfer things across my network to the iPad except for small video files. You're not going to see. I mean, I guess if you're doing iTunes sync over Wi-Fi instead of with a plug, you might see a performance improvement. I'm not set up to test that because I don't sync my iPads with iTunes. But browsing the web, downloading files, watching video from iTunes, stuff like that, functionally no difference between AC and N. The one thing that you will see is an improvement in range. But that's slight, and that'll depend dramatically on what your Wi-Fi environment's like around.
What your router's like, and
And like all previous, the last I think 2 generations, they support 2.4 and 5 gigahertz spectrums for N. So the 5 gigahertz spectrum is much better in my area. I don't know about your house, but I assume it's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's it.
Yeah, it's $500, which seems like a lot. It's what iPads have always cost. The 16 gig model starts at $500. There's no 32 gig model anymore. It goes straight from 16 to 64 gigs. I don't think the 16 gigabyte model, I might buy that for my parents. They don't put photos on it. They don't use it. They use it as a web browser and a computer, not as a place to store media.
I think it's a dick move that they still sell 16 gigs.
I think selling 16 gigs in a world where the next version of iOS will probably be a 4 or 5 gig download, it's pretty shitty.
Yep.
So, I mean, on the other hand, if you were going to buy a 32 gig model, if you've previously bought 32 gig models for $600, then you get an extra 32 gigs of memory for free, of storage for free.
Yep.
And then it's another $100 for 128 gigs if you want that. As with all previous iPad generations, if you want to get the cellular version, you can. It's an extra $130. That seems like more and more in a world where most cell plans have tethering built in.
Tethering's free in your plan unless you're using this as your tethering device.
Exactly.
And you want to conserve on your battery and on your phone.
But the current gen phones, the battery life is much better. I can tether on my 6 Plus all day long without any problem. The neat thing about this generation, hopefully this goes forward in the phones, although I don't think it will, is that the SIMs are theoretically universal. So you can use AT&T 1 month, you can use Sprint 1 month, you can use Verizon 1 month. You shouldn't have to swap anything on the hardware. I know that some of the carriers have been not playing nice with that feature and have been locking the SIM to AT&T once you activate it with AT&T the first time. So before you do that, pay attention. I think you can probably go to an Apple store rather and get a fresh, clean SIM for a nominal fee or just maybe time if you so desire.
All right.
So
it's probably the most significant upgrade to the iPad line since the Retina came out, and without compromises.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the iPad 3, which was the first Retina one, if you look at the 4, if you look at the Air, like they weren't always clear step forwards, right? Like the iPad 3 rather, was a huge, bulky pound-and-a-half thing, and it was better. The screen was definitely better. It was a gorgeous screen, but it weighed a lot more than the iPad 2. The 4 was marginally better, had better battery life, but it came hot on the heels of the iPad 3. And then the Air came out, and it was lighter and better, but it wasn't, you know, it didn't light the world on fire. I think that this is a really solid iPad. I think with the new processor, it'll last a long time. You know, there's been a lot of talk about iPads being kind of purchased more like a laptop than, say, a phone. So a phone you upgrade every couple of years, laptops you upgrade every 4 or 5. I think that this is a device that will easily last you 4 or 5 years if you buy in, you know, this year.
Does that mean with every iPad release they've had a different body?
No, iPad 1 was original, iPad 2, iPad 3 and 4 were the same, weren't they? It was lighter. The 4 was lighter, but I think it's still the same shell. I didn't get a 4, so I don't know.
I think that's strange for Apple. Every iPad release, almost every iPad release, a different body. I don't think they can do that again next year.
I think that this is the new thing
for a while.
I think we'll see this until we get to something that's flexible that you pull out and it's, you know, a wobbly.
Well, maybe there's double resolution again.
Maybe. I don't know that there's a reason to double resolution. I mean, slightly higher pixel density would be good. I don't think going to 4,000.
Oh, no, I don't think they'd double. I think it'd be triple the original.
Yeah. I think what they did with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus.
Yeah. So what you get instead of changing the screen size or the aspect ratio, the original iPad was 1024 by 768. So you have 3 times that. So you basically get 3,000. I can't do the math. 3,100 something by 2,000 something.
That sounds good to me.
That's 2,000
what I'm going something for. By 3,000 something. The last thing I do want to say is the optically bonded screen is noticeably better. Like it is a big improvement. I'm super excited to see this come to the Mini. I'm not going to buy one of these for myself, but my wife's been using an iPad 3 for 2.5 years now. She's probably due for an upgrade. It's starting to feel a little chunky, and this is, I think, probably a good purchase in that regard. So
yeah.
So that's it. That's the iPad Air 2. It's new. It's out now. I think it's really good. But it's, you know, if you have, let's see, iPad Air 1, iPad 4, maybe even iPad 3, you probably don't need this one. We'll be back with more Untested soon.
Bye.